Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to talk about the fact that retro gaming is the future. Now I have to point out that I just don't like the term retro, but older gaming, retro gaming is becoming more and more popular. Emulation has always been a thing. I remember sort of 30 years ago playing Mega Drive games on my PC, and it's just sort of expanded from there. We then started seeing emulators on portable devices like DS's and PSPs, so that you could play Game Boy and Master System and Super Nintendo games on the go. More recently, we've started seeing dedicated portable emulators, and this has absolutely boomed with the likes of Retroid, Mayu, Powkiddy, and Anbernic, bringing more and more devices. That just seems to be the bigger thing at the minute. And not only has it expanded from playing 8-bit and 16-bit games like the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, SNES, Master System, Mega Drive, but these devices have now got more and more powerful, so they can cater for like 32-bit, 64-bit, covering PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, N64, GameCube, Saturn, Dreamcast. Being able to emulate all of these systems on portable machines is fantastic. And there's always been mainstream compilations of retro or classic games from the likes of Sega, offering like the Mega Drive classics on various different systems. You've got a lot of SNK collections on things like the Switch. So they know that people want to dip into nostalgia or play those games again. So why have we seen such a resurgence in people picking up older gaming? And I think some of it is because modern gaming has just come to a point. It's stalled. Everything starts to look the same. There doesn't seem to be much innovation. The games and the consoles, they just go for this bigger and better, more shinier, and it's empty. People are starting to see that they're just recycling the same sort of things. I can't be the only one who prefers older gaming. Clearly I'm not, with these rise in emulation devices. And even mainstream console makers are bringing out these they're trying to fit in and bring out these retro consoles like the PlayStation Mini and the SNES Mini and the Mega Drive Mini. Little sort of, well, tiny consoles packed with some of the best games off of those eras or those consoles that you can play very easily on modern TVs. The likes of Atari, they're also doing it, bringing out things like the 2600 Plus, a new convenient way to play older Atari games, and their up and coming Game Station Go, which is this awesome looking handheld to play older retro Atari games. But why? Why have we seen a huge resurgence in emulation and big companies bringing compilations or mini consoles out? And it simply is because older gaming is simpler. It's smaller. There's no reliance on Wi-Fi or downloads or updates, or it's just a much simpler way of doing things. And retro, if you say the word retro, which is a phrase I do not like, I just prefer older gaming. But if you think of the word retro, most people will think, well, that's way back. You're talking Atari or NES or Game Boy era. But that's not so much. Even PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 are classed as retro these days. And a lot of people class the PS2 era as the golden era of gaming. It was that last generation where we had fantastic games before we started dipping into onlines and updates and stores and everything. So yeah, retro doesn't necessarily mean absolutely ancient. We're not talking 30, 40 years ago. PS2 is 20 odd years. So retro or older gaming is really it is the thing at the minute. There are even some new games that draw very heavily on the fact that people are liking this old school style of gaming. So things like Retro City DX, fantastic. Hotline Miami, Formula Retro Racing, and Overjump. These are all games that are for modern systems, and there are plenty more of them. That's just a few that I've picked out that are heavily based on the fact that people like either the 16-bit look, or the way those games play, or just the simple style that they are. That they don't overcomplicate them with 4K graphics and expansive worlds, and using those as the most, well, the things that draw people in. We want to sort of hark back to an era when gameplay was the most important thing, where looking back at them, yes, they didn't look fantastic, but you could spend hours, days, weeks playing these games. As some of these modern games you can finish within a few hours, and there's no longevity with them unless you play online, and that seems to be another thing. There's a huge shift into everything's reliant on online. A bugbear of mine. It's all MMOs and multiplayers and connecting with people around the world to try and give a bit of life to a game before they move on and churn out the next one. Retro gaming, older gaming, there was no online, so everything really needed to be there, ready, fixed, working. This is the game we've released, and you could immerse yourself in a game that you owned, you bought. Another thing that I'm not a big fan of, sort of paid DLCs, in-game currencies. That's another thing with modern, and I think that's switching a lot of people off. And there are so many things about retro gaming that it's not just the style of gameplay, it's not just the classics that you want to play, but it's the whole ethos of retro gaming. When, well, let's stop saying retro gaming. It's the whole ethos of gaming back then, is that it was made for the gamer. You went out, you bought it, you played it, it was complete. Okay, they may have some bugs, or it may not have been the most fantastic, but they didn't fix it and patch it and add on to it later. You bought a game, it was yours. The developers put the effort in, and I also feel that there was much more variety back then. Everything these days just seems pretty much the same, very bland. There isn't as much innovation in gaming style and characters and as there was back then. So retro gaming is the future, which is a little bit of a daft statement, because, well, at some point it's going to catch up and then there'll be nothing retro worth doing. But I'm talking late 80s all the way up to sort of the mid 2000s. That's the golden era of gaming, and that's where a lot of people are sort of going back to. We see it a lot with remakes, remasters, compilations, and obviously the emulation scene is massive. A lot of it is down to these portable emulation devices, which came out of a need for people wanting to play these older games on the go. So yeah, retro gaming is the future. I'm sick of modern gaming, and I think a lot of people are, and that is where the whole sort of gaming industry is swerving back to how it used to be, and that is such a good thing. Keep a lookout. I do love emulation. I do love portable consoles. I have an Anbernic, which is absolutely superb. I'm very excited by this GameStation Go announcement from Atari, and I can see a lot more companies producing these either mini consoles. So Sega have already said that they won't be bringing out a Saturn Mini or a Dreamcast Mini, but I could quite easily see Sony bringing out a PS2 Mini. That would be fantastic, and with these emulation devices getting more and more powerful, everything is covered. Like I said, you can play Dreamcast and PS2 games on the go on these little handheld devices, and that is the best era. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling, but retro gaming, older gaming is the future. Let me know what you think. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.